Hello. Thank you for joining me. Welcome back here. We're going to have a talk about the ego and God and fear today. Yeah, that's the backdrop. Where we are is as we go through the text of A Course in Miracles, we're on chapter 11, section 5, which is known as the dynamics of the ego. Now, as you look at this material, you'll notice that dynamics is in quotation marks. So, the way we're meant to look at this is the supposed dynamics of the ego, the so called dynamics of the ego, which is not dynamic at all, because when something is dynamic, it has the power to do something, anything. The ego has no power to do anything. And this is so unequivocally because it is nothing. Nothing. So when we place our allegiance by our own election, by our own choice in the ego, we're placing our allegiance in nothing. We're putting our faith in nothing at all. No wonder we're running amok, dazed and confused and frustrated. We're simply listening to the wrong guide. Part of the simplicity, the sheer simplicity of A Course in Miracles lies in the situation here in the present moment that we find ourselves in. We all do. We have a choice right here in the present moment, which is not complicated. It's simple. There is only one choice between exactly two options. That's simplicity for you. There's only one choice to make. There are not billions and billions of individual, parsed out, and separate choices to make. Just one. Which thought system will we adhere to? That's the question. And we all answer it in the present moment, whether we think we're answering it or not, or we could, in fact, actively deny that we're answering it, that all of this is a complete steaming pile of you know what that attracts flies. I mean, we can deny this all we want. You may find yourself experiencing such thoughts. It's perfectly natural. We're not taught any of this in school. And if you were, that's cool and really rare. Because all of the world is an illusion. It's a dream that attempts to perpetuate itself. Our societies condition us to think we're a human body. And here comes this course stating clearly and unequivocally and inescapably that you're not a body. And you know this as well. Again, we are free to deny this. Our societies, our school systems, our parents, I mean, honestly, right? Our family units all have conditioned us to think that the life of this thing, which is incredibly finite, and it certainly does not last, changes from one minute to the next, develops aches and pains, gray hairs, becomes infirm and craps out into a heap on the ground that's lifeless and completely worthless. That And that's not the life of the Son of God. You're not a body, and you know this. If you didn't know it deep down, you would not be interested in spirituality, because it's in response to that deep inner knowing or that thought that may have cropped into your mind at some point, whether you were consciously aware of it or not, that there's got to be something more to it than just the needs of this 80% water organism. Well, yeah, of course, there's more to it than that. We're invited to set aside our self-limitation. I invite you to do that. Will it be scary? Yeah, it might be. Yeah, it might be at times. All fear is of the ego, which is nothing. It does not exist. You don't have to believe in it. You don't have to adhere to it. You don't have to choose it. You could choose instead the thought system of the Holy Spirit. This is the one choice that we have between exactly two options: ego, Holy Spirit; fear, love; ego, God; complete illusion, truth; dark, light; death, life. Put it however you wish to put it in words. This is the choice that we're all invited to make. And yeah, it is that simple. The ego's only claim to our allegiance is that it can give us something. It can help us get something. So, with that in mind, we make every effort to individuate ourselves, to see ourselves as separate, to pit ourselves against our brother and judge him and judge our brother's political party. Just an example, one I frequently use, because what better depiction of the ego at play over something as illusory as temporal power, which is nothing. It's nothing. It's nothing at all. We don't have power over one another. There is no separation of any kind. There's no separate other over which we could assume any mantle of control. Nor can we be controlled by anyone who would assume a mantle of control or a mandate, an elected mandate or a non-elected mandate, as the case may be. There is no separation of any kind. The entire world is a complete dream, and all of its systems are a complete illusion. The ego's one claim to our allegiance is that in seeing ourselves as individual, we can get something. We can get temporal power, says the ego. Yeah, we can get rich. We can acquire lots of money and privilege and prestige and social status and leisure and sexiness and a giant following on social media. We can acquire fancy fine threads and a beautiful car. We can acquire status and prestige and self-importance. We can get all of this. Yeah, don't you want more, 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 more? Hey, look at me. I'm shiny. I mean, that's the ego at play. So by giving it our allegiance, what's really going on, and this is something that it can seem quite shocking, actually, especially at first, when we adhere to the ego and give it power, we're belittling ourselves. We are absolutely cutting ourselves off from the only source of power, God. And we're cutting ourselves off from our real power when we see ourselves as separate. That's all. And it's a choice that we've made repeatedly, or we wouldn't appear to be here. None of this would appear to be happening. The good news is we have this present moment choice. Now, the ego is, remember, this chapter is entitled The Dynamics, the supposed or so-called dynamics of the ego. And it's very, very ingenious in its own guile. That's one way of putting it. It allows us to see ourselves as scum. It allows us to see ourselves as deeply unworthy, as horrible procrastinators, as awful at something, as bad people, mean. It allows us to see ourselves as mean. It allows us to see ourselves as unworthy and hideous and ugly, but it never permits us to be afraid. It won't permit us to say, I'm afraid. So, why is this important? Covering up fear is what the ego does. It doesn't want you to acknowledge that you're afraid of it, of anything. It allows you to boast that you're the bomb. It allows you to boast that you're the smartest, coolest, most chic, debonair, and sexiest human being that's ever lived. You're the coolest. Or you're the worst, but you're not afraid. The ego attempts at all times to conceal fear. This is how it keeps a hold on the mind, by concealing fear and concealing its intention to keep you afraid. The ego wants you to be afraid to look within. So it distracts you on all of these other judgments, such as you're the bomb or you suck, you're scum. And often it's an alternation. Life is like that, isn't it? Where we feel great one minute, horribly the next. The ego keeps us afraid of ourselves, of God. And the more we're afraid of ourselves, of God, of looking within and seeing the absolute emptiness of the ego and the world and all that appears in it, nothing. It doesn't want us to see this, so it distracts us with judgment and blame of others, of ourselves, of our lot, of our plight, of all kinds of things. The ego doesn't want us to recognize that the only thing that appears to separate us from God is our fear. When we recognize that, that can be undone. The ego wants to teach us that its thought system, its purpose, can be accomplished and God's cannot. In other words, that through holding yourself out as separate from every other living thing and God himself, that you can get something. You can get power, prestige, status. You can look and feel cool. And clearly we recognize there's more to it than just that. But the ego thinks that its purpose to make you the bomb until you die. That's It's not a very heartening thought system, is it? Yet that's what we continue to adhere to over and over again. Just a brief little interlude of coolness that we have to really, really strive for and compete for. And maybe it's gifted us, but it's not the peace of God. The ego thinks that its system can be accomplished and God's cannot. Now, the Holy Spirit teaches the exact opposite. God's purpose can be accomplished, and it's accomplished already. It's already done. Union, oneness is already done. God's purpose, God's will is already done. You are one with God. It's done. It's already done. So in the present moment, we have this one choice. Would you choose more of the same, suffering, by choosing the ego's thought system? Or would you choose the thought system of the Holy Spirit, your inner teacher, who teaches us that God's will is done, that God's purpose not only can be accomplished, it's also accomplished already? There is a very big contrast between these two thought systems. And in case you're just tuning in, when we refer to A Course in Miracles as a thought system, that's an accurate way of looking at it. Yes, it's spirituality. It's universal in theme and application, which means that no matter what your spiritual or religious background, you can still watch this video for sure. And you can still study this course and benefit greatly by it. It is a self-study curriculum. And when we talk about this course as a thought system, it's the thought system of our inner teacher, the Holy Spirit. By the way, you can call this inner teacher whatever you wish. It's just a name, and names are just labels. That's really all they are. And what matters is the choice that you make here in the present moment. One choice keeps you stuck. The other one points you to truth so that you may allow it and experience it. The more you allow yourself to think about this, to really truly contemplate this, the easier this choice becomes. So when we talk about this course as a thought system, it is that. It's a course in mind training, because mind is where all the action is. Remember, you are not a body. If you want to look at the specific workbook lessons that state this, and the course in the text and the manual and other places states this, but there are 20 consecutive lessons right in the midst of the workbook for students. Lessons 201 through 220 that have as the main idea, I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. 20 consecutive lessons so that it sticks with the rhyme scheme in English, at least deliberately placed, for our quick and ready adoption and recognition. And we all know that there's more to it than just the life and travails of this mechanism. We don't have to place our faith and allegiance in the ego. And when do we make this choice? Well, right now. Not 15 minutes ago, not 15 minutes from now, nor 15 years from now, but right now. This is not the only spiritual tradition to greatly stress the importance of the present moment. It's what we've got. So we're invited to choose love, truth, light, life, the Holy Spirit, God. We're invited to choose ourself with a capital S. Such is the invitation that goes out to all of us all of the time. It's going out to you right now. What you're invited to do is to pay attention to it and simply listen. As much as you're able to do so, just drop the stream of chatter that goes on constantly in our mind and listen to the voice of your inner teacher. You may or may not hear words in a language that you speak and recognize, but you will be spoken to in some way. This could come in the form of a feeling or an idea that enters your mind, an intuitive hit, a deep inner knowing, a gut feeling, whatever you call that. It could come in the form of something someone else says. This image, perhaps, or someone else. You could see something that appears to take place in the world outside that reminds you of the truth of who you really are. So we're invited to pay attention because the call of our inner teacher, the call to awaken, is constant. It goes out to each and every one of us all of the time. The question, are we listening? And when we are, then the question is, do we take our inner teacher's advice? And that suggestion is that, yes, please do take your inner teacher's advice to forgive the Son of God, to extend love to your brother. That would be very kind of you. And the benefits are incalculable. If you're asking what's in it for me, well, the peace of God, which is deep down what we all want. So I invite you to join me. So along the way, quite naturally, because this is very deep stuff, you deserve nothing less. So comments and questions are more than welcome here. And we've had a number of them recently. Excellent comments, excellent questions. If you've got them, please feel welcome to leave them here in the stream of comments here on YouTube. There have been a number of requests lately, and this is something that I invite all the time, for a specific video on a specific topic that's coming up for you, a topic of interest in spirituality in this course, whatever that may be. If you have those and you'd like to hear me talk about that one particular subject in a video entirely devoted to that subject, please let me know, and I'm happy to work those in. It's very easy to do. And if you have not yet subscribed, I invite you to please do that as well. The subscription arrow's here in this corner of your screen. When you click or hover over that arrow, you'll be prompted to join us. So I hope that you do that. Thank you to all of you who have subscribed recently. And my purpose in offering these videos is to serve as a help, as a guide, and to assist you in any way that I can. So I thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that, first of all, and also for joining me here today. So comments and questions are more than welcome. If you've got them, please leave them, and I will talk to you all very soon.